It's that unique rarity when a former 5-star prospect gets drafted in the 7th round of the draft. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into another recruiting throwback video. This time, taking a look back on some former 5-star prospects that got crazy hype that did end up getting drafted in the 7th round of NFL drafts. You could argue going in the 7th round of NFL drafts is worse than being undrafted, because when you're undrafted, at least you get to pick which team you want to go to as an undrafted free agent. The first guy we're going to be looking at is Terry BECKNER Jr., who went with the first pick of the 7th round in the 2019 NFL draft to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can take a look at him as a recruit from Illinois. This was a big boy defensive tackle, the number 13th player in the nation. He is from Illinois and he goes to Missouri. This was a major recruiting win for Missouri, facing all those SEC teams. They thought this was going to be a pillar among their defensive line. Now, how did his NFL career turn out? Well, he didn't play a single snap in the NFL. He was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad. He signed with them, he was drafted by them, but then got cut before the start of the 2019 season. He ends up signing on with the Chicago Bears, gets cut before the first week, and now he's playing with the Pittsburgh Maulers. So good for him. 2022, he's still active. I wonder if he has any stats with that team. But yeah, when it comes to this former 5-star prospect, 0 NFL snaps. What we're going to do with this video is we're going to look back at all the 5-stars that were drafted in the 7th round, and then we're going to see if they actually did anything in the NFL. You know, a lot of teams looking with that 7th round pick. Maybe we go with the high upside guy, the 5-star, who is really talented. Has it worked out for anyone? It didn't work out there. Moving on to the next situation, we've got Isaac NAUTA, who was a really elite tight end recruit from IMG Academy. He ends up getting picked in the 7th round with the 10th overall pick, 224th overall. This is a former 5-star going 224th overall. You look at him as a recruit out of Georgia, the number 1 overall tight end, the number 14 overall player. He commits to he commits to Georgia with that Jacob Easton class along with Mecole Hardman, and he turns out to be a complete bust at Georgia. You can take a look at his overall NFL career. He did, get drafted by the Detroit Lions, play a little bit with the Lions. Right now, currently, his NFL career stats, 3 catches for 16 total yards. He was with the Green Bay Packers as a member of their practice squad in 2020 and 2021. His career highlights, he was a freshman All-American back in 2016, and he also made the U.S. Army All-American Bowl or whatever. That's when you're like a 5-star recruit and you go to the bowl. So he was obviously a top recruit. The next 5-star to be drafted in the 7th round, it's going to be Terry GODWIN, also from Georgia. He ends up going with the 237th overall pick to the Carolina Panthers, the former elite receiver recruit from the state of Georgia, listed as an athlete, played receiver with Georgia, the number 27th overall player, the number 1 athlete in his class, and the number 4 player from Georgia. This was a complete dynamic blue chip recruit, 5-star recruit, and you can take a look at his NFL career. 2019 with the Carolina Panthers, after getting drafted by them, he ended up getting cut, and then he signed on to play with the Jaguars from 2019 to 2021, so he at least got some game checks because he was in some NFL games. Ends up right now, his current NFL numbers, 3 catches for 32 yards and 0 touchdowns. You hate to see it. It's a former 5-star going in the 7th round. He can't do anything. The next guy we're looking at, it's going to be Bo Scarborough. I'm sure a lot of people remember this dude from that national championship game. Yeah, I think he had 2 long touchdown runs during one of Bama's national championship games against Clemson. They faced him like 3 times. It was one of those games, I believe, at Raymond James Stadium. I vividly remember this. Bo Scarborough, by the way, it's such an amazing running back name. I mean, let's just seriously, Bo Scarborough. I'm shocked this kid was not like Derrick Henry. Like, honestly, this should have been like the next Derrick Henry at Alabama. He was built, a running back, 5-star. You take a look at him from IMG Academy. So I'm guessing he transferred to IMG from Tuscaloosa. So he was originally from Tuscaloosa. Not surprising at all. He commits to Alabama being from frickin' Tuscaloosa. And he was listed as an athlete. I don't know if he also played linebacker, but you would think the dude, Bo Scarborough with his build would be a running back. It's not like he's going to be a receiver, but maybe he was like a linebacker too. That's why he's listed as an athlete, the number 16 overall player. You can take a look at his lengthy NFL career, getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, also a member of the Jaguars practice squad, also a member of the Seahawks practice squad, played with the Detroit Lions from 2019 to 2020, the Seahawks, Las Vegas Raiders, and now the Birmingham Stallions. So good for him. Very nice. His overall career statistics, 408 rushing yards along with 1 rushing touchdown. He also has 1 reception for 5 yards. Don't want to disrespect that. And he's also a 2-time national championship part of that Alabama dynasty. The next guy we're looking at, it's going to be Josh Harvey Clemons out of the University of Louisville by way of Georgia. So he transferred from Georgia to Louisville, and then he was drafted with the 230th overall pick by the Washington Commanders. Late in the 7th round. You can take a look. The number 22nd overall player from the state. A lot of Georgia. That's 3 Georgia players. 3 former Georgia 5-stars getting drafted in the 7th round. Josh Harvey Clemons. Kind of a very athletic, modern-day hybrid linebacker. Great build. The number 22 overall player, the number 1 linebacker, and the number 1 player in the state of Georgia. This was an absolute elite, top-of-the-line recruit. You can see after he was drafted with the Washington Redskins, he played for 4 years, so that's a really good job for a 7th-round pick to be on a team for 4 years, and registered 41 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 4 pass deflections, and he was a member of the Miami Dolphins practice squad in 2021. Not bad for a 7th-round pick, and good production the Commanders got out of him. The next guy we're looking at, MALACHI DUPRE. Great receiver name. MALACHI DUPRE is an unbelievable name for a receiver. He ends up going in the 7th round with 247th overall pick to the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers says, let's take a chance on this guy. Let's see what he's got. You look at him as a recruit, the number 17th overall player, the number 2 receiver in the country, in the entire country from Louisiana. He commits to LSU. This is the next Jarvis Landry type slot receiver. And unfortunately, I do not believe, no, he hasn't played a down. He has not played a single down in the NFL. He was cut by the Packers. He went to the Bills, went to the Texans, back to the Seahawks, back to the Cardinals, back to the Chargers, not to be outdone by the DC Defenders. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of different teams, not a lot of action, 0 NFL snaps in his career. It is what it is. The next guy, and this just worked out. This is another Georgia player that was, this is another former Georgia 5-star that was drafted in the 7th round, Keith Marshall, who was also drafted by Washington. So they take some chances on some talented guys. Keith Marshall as a recruit from Raleigh, North Carolina. All-purpose back, number 13th overall player. He was the number 1 overall all-purpose back in the entire country and the number 3 player in the state of North Carolina. Wow, North Carolina must have been talented that year. The number 13th overall player is the number 3. That's pretty good for North Carolina, but he commits to Georgia. This is a franchise-type all-purpose back. This guy, unbelievable recruit. Unfortunately, it really didn't work out for him. He went to Washington for 2 years, and he did not play a single snap in the NFL. A lot of Georgia players, you know, for whatever reason, a lot of Georgia players, this is, you know, if a recruit sees this video, it would not be very good for Georgia seeing all these 5-stars go undeveloped, although recently, you know, they've got a new coaching staff now with Kirby Smart. Moving on to the next 5-star that was drafted in the 7th round, it's going to be Andre DEBOSE. Who? This was one of the kids, I didn't even know this kid was a 5-star, but he was drafted with the 221st overall pick by the Las Vegas Raiders, the Oakland Raiders at the time. This kid, the number 15th overall player from the class of 2009, he's the number 2 overall receiver and the number 4 player in the state of Florida. He commits to Florida, and you can see his time with the Oakland Raiders. He was only a member of their practice squads. He goes to Indianapolis, and then he goes to Toronto, and he doesn't play a single snap in the NFL. He was never on an active roster in the NFL. Another sad story. The next guy we're going to look at, this is like the Mona Lisa. This is the big one. It's going to be SEANTREL Henderson, who was actually the number 2 overall player in the entire nation. So he got picked with the 237th overall pick by the Buffalo Bills. This dude, as a recruit, the number 2 player, the number 1 overall offensive tackle from Minnesota. He goes to the University of Miami from Minnesota. What a great recruiting job that is, to pull a kid from Minnesota to Miami. This kid was supposed to be a franchise-type tackle. He ends up going in the 7th round. It's a sad story, but you know what? There's a redemption arc, and this kid actually played 39 games in the NFL. He started 29 of them. He was with the Buffalo Bills for 4 years. He was with the Houston Texans for 2 years, so he got some legitimate game checks. Good for him, and now he's with Saskatchewan. Wow. So that's great news for him. He's making some real bank over in Canada, and this dude, number 2 overall prospect, getting drafted in the 7th round. That is unbelievable. And then you know what he says? I'm not going to let it affect me. He goes out and starts 29 games as a tackle in the NFL and gets some money, gets some game checks. So good for him. And guys, it gets even better. The next guy we're talking about, Bryce Brown, who was also ranked as a number 2 overall recruit in his class. He ends up going in the 7th round to the Philadelphia Eagles. He originally was on Tennessee. He ended up transferring to Kansas State, but as a recruit, one of the top running back recruits in history, the number 2 overall player in his class, the number 1 running back from Wichita, Kansas, commits to Tennessee, and you can see his time with the Philadelphia Eagles. He spent 2 years there, goes to Buffalo for a few years, and then Seattle. Actually had a few big games with the Philadelphia Eagles, even including, I believe, he had a massive Sunday Night Football game. I remember vividly against the Cowboys. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, Bryce Brown, crazy talented. It doesn't work out at Tennessee. He ends up transferring to Kansas State and gets picked. The former number 2 overall player in the entire country gets drafted in the 7th round. It's almost better if you go undrafted. It's almost better if you go undrafted, but that's going to do it for this video. I didn't realize how many Georgia players. That had to have been 4 players from Georgia, and it's kind of just a weird quirk, like former 5-stars going in the 7th round of the draft. It's just a weird thing to look up. I didn't realize 4 of them were Georgia players, and then you take a look at the only number 1 player in the entire country any year is Trenton Thompson, and he actually went undrafted, and he was from Georgia. So the only number one overall player to ever go undrafted was Trenton Thompson. He was from Georgia. Georgia's had their fair share of busts. Goodness, so has USC. USC back in the late, back in like 2007, 2008, they had a lot of 5-star busts. But guys, that was just a little fun thing to look back on. Random, oddity, whatever. I like doing that type of stuff. But that's going to do it for this recruiting throwback. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.